model. Okay, what is Milton model? Alright, Milton model is actually a set of hypnotic language patterns. That sounds a bit scary, right? Especially when you hear what some of these patterns I'm about to share, you realize that it is something which is happening everywhere. People are constantly Miltoning you. It's whether or not you're conscious about it. So, what is this Milton model? It's a set of language patterns that allows you to speak into the emotional side of the mind, someone's mind. And there are a total of 20 language patterns and all. But today I'm just going to share with you 5 of them. Why? Because I believe that sometimes less can actually be more. Right. It's the best that if you can just apply 1 or 2 of these patterns at the end of this talk here, it will be much more fruitful than giving you 20 of them and applying none of them. Alright? So if you're ready, let's set off for the very first linguistic patterns that I have for you. And by the way, one of the key things that makes Milton language patterns work is this. It must be used as that means the more it's undetectable, the more people don't realize that you are trying to use it, the more effect it has. I'll show you some examples of how Obama used it so subtly and so intelligently. Of course, part of it is about using it at the right place at the right time. So let's take a look at the very first one. Okay, the very first one is known as what? Everyone says it together. Universal quantifier. Now, what is a universal quantifier? Now, the word universal means what? It's a very general kind of statement. Yes. You know, men and women like to do this. Men, whenever they are having their own discussion, brotherly talk, right? So men always like to say this, right? They will say, I'll tell you what, man. After you know about all these things that happen to my wife, then they conclude that all women are like that one. Yes or yes? Men will always conclude, right? Oh, women are like that. Yeah, they conclude this thing. And then women also have their version. Because women after that, they come together for their women's talk, and after some time, they'll conclude that all men are what is it? All men for Vicky?
All men are the same.
All men, okay. Trying to be very diplomatic, right? All men are the same. Okay, so. But what is a universal quantifier? Anytime when you use a word such as all, every, okay, he has never done this before. Alright, he's never bought me flowers before. Oh, when? I thought I just bought you last week. You know? Sometimes when we use words like universal, it has power. Now, how does it work in influence? Of course, you ask me. Now, sometimes, for example, when I say like, you know what? Every guest that's ever stepped into a Toastmasters and become a member will see that their life is never the same again. Now, that's an example of a universal quantifier. But that means I'm presupposing that any guest that steps in is going to change their life. So when you use it at the appropriate time, it can actually have a huge impact. Right, that's a universal quantifier. Now the next one is known as a comparative deletion. Now what's a comparative deletion? Basically when you try to put 2 things together, or maybe it's not even 2 things. When you say something like, you know, when I saw Gladys joining Toastmasters more than 2 years ago, her skills have become so much better after 2 years. What's the word here? Better. But did we say how much better? We didn't say how much better. Now that's known as a comparative deletion. Sometimes people tell you, it is Coca-Cola that gives you the better taste. But what are you comparing against? But sometimes when you use at the appropriate time, again, it has that kind of illusion effect that it has impact. Alright, it's an influential impact. So that's a comparative deletion. Now let's move on to the next one. What's this called? Well, this is my favorite. It's called an unspecified verb. Let's say it together. Unspecified verb. Can you remember during those days where we were learning our basic English? Can anyone tell me what's a verb? Any language evaluator? Yeah? It's a doing word. Example of a verb is
Run.
Runs. Another one?
Love.
Love, speak, yeah, even think, right, is a verb. Alright, what about unspecified verb? I mean, realize that usually when we use a verb, to a certain extent, it is unspecified what the process is really all about. Like, for example, you hear people telling you, oh, she has just rejected me again. And then after you ask, oh, how did she reject you? actually talk to me. Oh, so that's actually rejection. But that is actually what we call an unspecified verb, that we do not know what exactly is the process all about. Now see, how does this work with influence? Now, have you all ever heard Obama in one of his campaign speeches? He said something like this. He once said, "Fellow Americans, do you know that your voice can actually change the world?" How many have ever heard him saying this? Your voice can change the world. Now you see, while many of these very great leaders, influential communicators say things like that, we don't usually pause and ponder and reflect. What are they really talking about? But what do you think he actually meant when he says, your voice can change the world? Vote for him. But just imagine if he actually said another way, he says, you know, fellow Americans, just vote for me. You think we've got a vote? But he's smart, right? He says, your voice, and by the way, the word voice itself is another Milton language pattern. It's called nominalization. What's your voice? Okay, your vote can actually change the word. And by the way, how does the change happen? I do not know, you know. But because the key is when you use it, it's so ambiguous, it is so powerful. Nobody can disagree with you when you say, we can change the world. Because maybe a change of the world, it could be something as simple as making everyone happy. That's to change the world. Or change could be just to have a bit more hope. That's also changing the world. So it's used very ambiguous and actually has that impact. Now, what's the next one?